Topic 1, we'll be looking at 3 terms, starting with GDP. So GDP is the market value of all the goods and services produced in a country. So we'll be looking at some demand and supply graphs and be seeing GDP increasing or decreasing. Next, we have inflation. So inflation is the growth of price levels in an economy, and this occurs during expansion. However, when the opposite of inflation is deflation, and this occurs during a recession, and we'll be looking at some demand and supply graphs to show this. Unemployment involves people who want to work but can't find any available jobs. We will explore how unemployment links to the business cycle through recession and expansion. Alright, so now we will show you what these look like on this graph. So we'll look at a shift to the right for aggregated demand and also a shift to the left. So when aggregated demand shifts to the right, this indicates expansion. Now this is because real GDP is increasing. GDP is right there. So it will be going to the right, and this means that the country has a higher output. Now this also means that price levels are increasing due to inflation happening, and this also means higher demand, which means higher prices, And also an increase in GDP also shows a decrease in unemployment. This is because more workers are needed to combat for the more high demand, which means the equilibrium will move from here up to here. Now, on the other hand, we'll look at a recession now, which is this red line, a shift to the left on aggregated demand. So this means that there will be lower output for a country as GDP is decreasing. Now, this also means that price level will also be decreasing, which shows deflation. Going to the left here, deflation. And a decrease in GDP also shows an increase in unemployment. This is because there will be less demand as aggregated demand moves to the left, meaning less people will need to be hired to work. Now, why does this matter? So understanding GDP, inflation, and unemployment can provide us insight to consumer demand, cost of production and selling prices, and also working availability. So for consumer demand, which cars should Mazda produce more of? So if demand is going down, that means that GDP is going down. So Mazda should be producing cheaper cars to account for a consumer that's paying less due to deflation. Now, cost of production and selling prices. So this again ties into what I said. Cost of production during inflation, that will go up. So that will mean that Mazda may need to make cost-cutting choices or increase its selling price. During deflation, that means that Mazda will be able to make more cars due to things becoming cheaper. So they can decrease the selling prices to also combat this. Now, working availability, this just ties back to demand and selling prices. So who should Mazda hire and let go? So during inflation, Mazda will need more people to be working because they're going to be making more stuff, and vice versa. Recently, with tariffs being used in the US, this has caused many impacts on countries, and this slide will show the effects on Australia. So, with tariffs being used, this will cause the aggregated demand to shift to the left. So from this group line to this one. And this basically means that tariffs increase the price of exports. So Mazda in Australia will be exporting less to the USA because it will cost more and they'll make less of a profit. And by lowering their exports, it will lower their GDP. As we can see, GDP goes down. And this is because their exports, this one right here, will be decreasing. And this will also cause deflation, which will cause Mazda to have to lower the price of their cars. And less revenue will also cause unemployment because they'll be selling less people will need to be working to supply the goods. Now we will look at the effect of tariffs on the USA itself. So aggregated demand will shift to the right, as you can see to this green line here. And this is because by lowering US imports, people are going to buy locally. So this will increase the GDP. And also, the short-run aggregate supply will also shift to the left. This is because while inflation is happening, as we can see from this green line here, increasing inflation, this will cause company costs to increase, which will mean that it's going to cost more for production. And so we can see that the long run aggregate supply stays the same, and this is because this this change is due to inflation and not different sort of resource changes and innovation. Now let's look at the broader impacts of tariffs. So firstly, we've got the Australian currency. So importing resources for trade will become more expensive, and this is because AUD is weaker. So I guess for Mazda, this will mean that it will be more expensive to import parts to Australia because of the Australian dollar, which is weaker. So that will increase the cost of buying stuff with other currencies. There will also be a hindrance to the supply chain. So an increase in import costs, as we showed here, will cause delays in shipping times, and this is because of an increase in price. So for Mazda, this will show an unhappy consumer as they'll be getting their order of a car later. And yeah. Now, supply confidence. So in Australia, there may be, in any country, the supply will be less confident as their dollar will be going down, their country's dollar. So that might cause them to back out of production because they may not even be making a profit due to their dollar going down. And so this will also hinder Mazda's inventory flow, as we talked up here, the hindrance, the supply chain, and this may even halt production, and that's bad. Now in topic 3, we'll be looking at unhealthy food options, so traditional versus behavioral economics. So Homo economicus, which is a part of traditional economics, assumes that we're rational, we make good decisions, smart decisions, and concise, but that's not always the case. So these 3 are part of behavioral economics, and they assume that we're not rational, we're not smart. So bounded rationality explains how, as individuals, we have limited resources in making a decision. So when you look at buying fast food, it's so much easier to buy fast food than to make a healthy meal yourself. And yeah, now status quo bias assumes that we stick to our habits. We do what we know how to do best. So even if we want to eat healthier, we continue to eat unhealthy. We just fall back into our habits. Now, probability misperceptions assumes that we underestimate the health risks. So it's sort of like gambling. You think, oh, I'm not going to lose. Sort of how you underestimate health risks. And that's why people eat unhealthily, because the satisfaction of eating the yum food outweighs the negatives of like diseases and stuff. Now in topic 4, we'll look at AI's impact on labor. First, on the unskilled labor market. So demand will shift to the left with the introduction of AI, and this is because AI can replace unskilled jobs, which is like people working on production lines. AI can automate that, so they won't be needed to work. So this will lower the wage of unskilled workers because they'll be required less, and this will also decrease the equilibrium from here down to here. And lower quantity of workers demanded, as you can see, shift to the left. And this is because the jobs aren't sought after by the companies because they've got AI. And yeah. Now, for the skilled labor market, AI will make the skilled labor market shift to the right. And this is because skilled workers bring irreplaceable capability. They're not unlike unskilled workers, they can help AI to improve. They can work alongside it. So this can be seen by an increased productivity by, for example, coding skills and stuff like that. And this also increases the wage of skilled workers. As we can see, their wage will increase by the quantity demanded of the workers. And this is because their skill set is highly sought after, and it can increase efficiency. And this means that there will be an increase in equilibrium from here to here. And this, as I said, increases the quantity of workers demanded, and this will result in more workers hired. Now, I think that with the introduction of AI, I think that wage inequality will increase, and this is because unskilled workers will be required less. So since their jobs can be automated with AI, their wage will go down because they won't be required. And alternatively, with skilled workers, which will be required more to configure AI due to like coding and stuff, their increase in demand for them will increase their wage, therefore increasing wage inequality. Thank you.